Good evening, guys. Tonight I'm going to talk about Saturn in Sagittarius in the first house. So what kind of animal do we have here? Because we actually have an animal in our hands. It's the centaur. That's the symbol of Sagittarius, half man, half horse, just running all over this earth, exploring, shooting his arrows left and right, looking for as much experience as possible, not wanting to lose his freedom, not wanting to be stopped, not wanting any kind of obstacles. So the people who have this placement, you guys have a lot of presence. You take up a lot of space energetically too, because it's Sagittarius, it's Jupiter, so everything dealing with that is going to be larger than life. You are larger than life. You are projecting larger than life. Literally, physically, you are projecting that. You're projecting, you could be, the features that you have could be large. So like a large head, like wide face, large big mouth, that big smile, large forehead, maybe a lot of hair, maybe no hair, but still like it's prominent. There's a prominence to your appearance. Maybe you have big hands, maybe you have wide shoulders. Something about you is large, okay? And that could mean a lot of things. So that's Sagittarius. Sagittarius, if we talk about physically, I said there's a largeness to you. If we talk about how you come off to us physically, besides like the physical appearance of large, is your disposition is large. You're gregarious, optimistic, full of life. Everything's gonna be okay. Just leave me alone to do that. Leave me alone to explore. Like you cannot bear any kind of obstacles. You're unbridled that way. You love to roam. That centaur that's within you loves that freedom. And that's a Sagittarius thing to begin with, but because it's in the first house, it's even more concentrated. That feeling of like, I don't need anybody. I got myself, I got life, and I'm gonna live it. So if we look at another thing that I could call you would be a madman. There is a madman in you. There's a madman in every Sagittarius. And there's definitely a madman in Saturn and Sagittarius. The madman idea, where does that come from? Because you are so in tune with that life force within you. You're so in tune with this, the truth that you have. What do we say with Sagittarius? They're seeker of truth, liver of life. He wants to know, he wants to experience things. He wants to gain wisdom, higher knowledge. Because you do all of that, you do gain a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom. You carry that within you. You have a lot of it. You've done a lot of things. You've experienced a lot of things. And so you have this, you've built this philosophy on life, and it works for you. And you don't want it changed. And so, especially because it's the first house, you're so tied to it. You're passionately, blindly believe in it so much that in a way you are like a madman. Because to us, we might look at your philosophy on life and say, whoa, this is weird. Do you know what he does? Have you seen what she does? Have you seen what she thinks? Have you heard her speak? To us, it's like, okay, this is weird. But to you, it's not. And we might even look at you and be like, you're crazy. But to you, you're not crazy. And that's the purity of this placement. The purity of Sagittarius is that, he's so in tune with his truth. And he knows it passionately. He feels it with every fiber of his body, and it's that there's a stubbornness to it. And because it's the first house, you don't care if people think of you as a madman. Like, I don't know if you got offended or not that I said that, but you don't care because you don't think you're a madman. You're like, I'm not mad. I know what I'm talking about. And if you want to hear about it, I'll tell you. So let's say some examples of this placement. Shirley Temple, she's got both Saturn and Sagittarius South Node in the first house. So this little girl, and you look at her and she has this like cute face, this like, wide, cheeks, and she's full, and she's so full of life, and she's so optimistic, and she basically got this country, the United States, through the Great Depression. FDR Franklin Delano Roosevelt himself said something like, as long as we have Shirley Temple, everything will be okay. We will be fine. So this little girl, you know, she's so free in her expression, and she's just optimistic and unbridled, and she can tap, and I think she can sing, and she just, you know, you look at her and you're like, you can't help but like want some of that optimism, and that optimism rubs off on others, all right, that you carry within you. Another example is Fred Astaire, great dancer, you know, amazing dancer. A lot of people were influenced by him. The guy was, the way he moved, you know, and it was so free, his movement, you know, to where, I think from what I read, like he himself, people would ask him, like, you know, because when we see greatness, we humans, when we see this freedom in a way, part of us cannot believe that somebody can be so free in their expression. And part of us wants to come in and analyze it and try to quantify it and maybe try to like teach it and break it down and something. And I think I remember reading where he kind of was like, don't try to analyze me. I'm not trying this. I just am this. Even though they said he was a perfectionist and he did a lot of takes, but at the same time, he just was like, the way he wanted to be filmed was particular, you know, and he just was like, just leave me be, let me dance. I'm not trying to be cool in a way. I just am. And that's how Sagittarius in the first is. Like, you're not trying to be free. You are free. And to us, we're like, damn, I want to be like that. Like, how can we put it in a book? Can we put it in a video? Can you teach this to us? Which we'll talk about later, because that is a way where you can interact with people and teach them that, you know, try to quantify it. But you yourself are like, there's nothing to quantify here. I just am. You know, that fire that you carry, that Sagittarian fire, is just blasting through you. It's just, it's coming through you. It's so free. It's unbridled, you know. It doesn't want obstacles. It doesn't want to be stopped. That's the worst thing you can do, is just to come in and like rain on this parade. No, you just have to leave it be, leave it alone, and that's where it's beautiful. And I could say, like, with this placement, you would kind of want to stay away from people, because you're just like, just leave me the fuck alone. I just want to be free. I just want to do what I do. I just want to run. I want to roam. And all of you trying to come into my world and try to like meddle here, you know, because the opposite house is what? Gemini in the 7th. So we're curious. We want to know, why are you like this? How are you like this? Can we be like this? Give us some of that. You know, what are you on? What are you taking? What are you drinking? But there is no drinking and taking. It's just you. It's your natural state to just be. And when you are in it, it's a beauty to watch. There was some quirkiness about him, and there's going to be quirkiness about you too. There's some things that you do that people might be like, why is he doing that? But once again, in your case, you are like, because I do. And there's no need to explain it, you know. It's just how I am. It goes back to that madman of yours that goes, I know why this is the way it is. I know why I'm doing it. Leave it alone. Don't worry about it. Leave me alone. Just leave me the fuck alone. So Astaire had, instead of a belt, he would wear a necktie or a scarf. So little things like that. Another one, Rafael Nadal, great tennis player. He's also, you know, beautiful to watch when he plays. And then he is also known to have some kind of quirks and superstitions. If you want to look it up, there's lists where it shows like what he does, the way he walks into a court, you know, how he sits down, you know, how he changes his shirts or how he places his drinks. Look it up if you're interested. So once again, it's, you have a certain way that you're doing things and being, and to the rest of the world they may look weird and quirky, but to you they make perfect sense, and you don't even need to explain them. And I would say if somebody does ask you to explain, they probably would get on your nerves, all right? Because they, you know, you don't want to be understood, you don't want to be studied, you don't want to be analyzed. Leave me the fuck alone to just be, all right? And I think, like, going back to Astaire, Fred Astaire, he made it a point where he did not want any kind of biographical movie or something made about him. I remember reading something about it, and even like in his will or something, and I think his wife was like, nothing, because he said, like, I don't want to be misrepresented. Like, he already knew that these fuckers are not going to understand me. They will, even if they make something, they're gonna make like a mediocre version versus to what I really am. You know, like you can't portray, you can't contain this fire. You know, if you put a horse on a piece of paper, he's not running anymore. Like if you try to like contain him, and you know, and when you're putting a spin on something, making a movie about something, you are containing it, because the director is showing you that through his own eyes. So right away, he's gonna put his own bias on it. All right, moving right along. So that would be some examples of like celebrities that we have. Okay, hold on, why am I saying that? Never mind. Other examples, Lenin, the guy behind the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia in 1917, he has that. So here you see that madman that is not so much a performer or whatnot, but he's a like a madman in a sense of like he has an idea. He's burning with an idea. The guys that I gave you examples of, like Astaire, Nadal, Shirley Temple, we have like the actual physical representation where the body is used to show movement. With Lenin, it was his ideology. You know, he was burning with this ideology, and he was, the way he spoke, you know, I always, in the negative, Sagittarius is a preacher teacher, a madman preacher teacher. You know, he could scare you into something. He could make a speech that you'll be like, holy shit, I better do what he's saying or I'm fucked. So in this case, like, he was able to convince people to uprise and change what was happening, you know. And so Bolsheviks came to power, and then, you know, after him it was Stalin, and you know, communist. And so basically he brought in a new ideology. He brought it in, he convinced people. He was so, this is the interesting part, is when you are listening to Sagittarius in the first, when they speak, any Saturn in Sagittarius, they're so ardent about it that you can't help but believe it. All right, guys? People will always reflect the strongest light. When somebody comes in and they put all their passion and fire into what they're speaking, you can't help but believe them. Even though you're like, holy shit, this makes no sense. But this guy is just fire. And he's right. He must be right. I mean, otherwise, how can he look so secure out there at the podium? Okay? Who else? Edgar Allan Poe has Saturn in the first in Sag. Now, he has a lot of his first house is also occupied by Scorpio. So you can see, when you look at him, you see that like Scorpio, like kind of, he's a little scary. Okay, he's not scary looking, but he has like this, his eyes are like, there's an intensity in his eyes. And his quirkiness was that he was a word list. He would come up with words. If he liked the way a word sounded, he would use it. Doesn't matter if it existed or not. So this is just another example of showing, I think this is true, so I'm going to make it true. Like, it's that idea that like truth is what I believe is true. And Sagittarius in the first encompasses that. And I don't care what, am I right, am I wrong, is there a dictionary, what are my peers gonna think? Fuck that. I want this word to exist, so I am going to make it exist. Once again, Sagittarius, leave me the fuck alone, I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. Stop raining on my fire, stop raining on my parade. Now let's talk about the negative of this, all right? So you could be, you know, we said the madman in good and bad. Imposter. This is a placement where we could deal with imposters. So we could say maybe like the imposters would be probably not the like the physical ones that I gave you. Like I don't think Nadal's an imposter or like Fred Astaire, but the ideology ones. Maybe the ones that are coming in with some kind of ideology. Maybe they could be seen as imposters. It's like where you're like, where the fuck did you come from? Where's your credentials? Don't worry about my credentials. Just listen to what I'm saying. Write it down. And with imposters, there's a great example. A Russian writer, Gogol, Gogol, he wrote a lot of stories. He has Saturn in Sagittarius in the first, and his stories carry that Sagittarius Saturn in the first theme. One of them is called The Diary of a Madman. So it's basically this government worker who's like doing his little thing every day, doing the same thing in his little world. Everybody's making fun of him because he's weird, because he's maybe not dressed very well, doesn't really care what he looks like, but he's in his own little world doing his thing, doing his job every day, the same task, whatever. And so he is he's in love with this girl and he doesn't know how to approach her. And even if he tries to approach her, it all comes out really weird. And she's like, this is cringy. Get the fuck away from me. Get this weirdo away from me. You are going to appear as a weirdo in a way because your truth to us is going to look weird. I've said that before, where you see nothing wrong with it, but to us, you're like, you're weird. That's it. You're a madman. You're crazy. Get this crazy guy out of here. So in the story, the guy in his seclusion, he starts reading newspapers, and one day he's like, there's no heir to the throne of Spain. And so he's like, they haven't elected yet the heir to the throne of Spain. So every day he's reading the newspaper and he's like, there's still no heir to the throne. And one day, somehow, out of somewhere, he convinces himself that he is the heir to the throne. So he starts dressing like this king of Spain, and he gets a crown and all that. And next thing you know, he ends up in a mental institution. And he's just like, he can't understand why everybody is not taking him seriously, because he is the heir. But of course, everybody around him is like, what is going on here? Who is this guy? So that would be the negative of this placement, where you are, if you are a performer, let's say like the guys I gave you, you are, showcasing your talents to people. They learn from you. You're helping them some way, because you are here to interact with others. You are, through just exchanging ideas with them, you listening to them. Because if you are so passionate in your truth, you are burning with that truth, you think everybody else doesn't know what they're doing. You know what you're doing, and you believe it so heartedly and so strongly, but everybody else, they're idiots. They don't know what they're doing. They need to come listen to me. I can tell them how to be. So you could benefit from actually like kind of, learning from others, asking questions, really getting to know them, not in the way you think you know them, but in actually interacting with them. All right, getting out of your house. You could be a recluse here too, in the negative, on the other spectrum, away from like the performers, the ones that are putting themselves out there. You have like the ones that are like in seclusion, like Edgar Allan Poe. He wasn't the one to like be around people much. He would criticize his peers, like throw these jabs at them, but he was basically like secluded, like a recluse in a way. And he died also like mysteriously. Nobody knows how the hell he died. They know that he died in poverty, and he just a lot of time what happens is that you, during your lifetime, like when you are alive, people don't take you seriously and they think you're crazy. But then when you're dead, people are like, wow, this guy actually had made some good points. So the interesting thing is that even though you're a madman, even though you're a little crank or you're a little bit out there with your ideas, there are nuggets of wisdom in what you're saying. All right, so if we were to listen to you, we could get some good stuff. Not everything, not believe everything you say, but like there is nuggets of wisdom to where later we go, oh shit, he was right. Like he predicted that this is going to happen, and it actually happened. So you do have wisdom, you do, because you are experiential, you trust your intuition, You trust your that core of yours, that truth of yours. And if somebody were to like listen to you, and if they were to be like conscious listener and like discerning, they could learn some cool stuff from you. All right, from the philosopher in you, from the teacher in you. Yeah, hold on one moment, guys. With you also, no idea is too crazy to believe in. That kind of goes back to the madman idea. Like nothing is out of bounds. With you, is like, if you think it's true, and you will convince others, guys, it's true, right? So yeah, the negatives would be the recluse, the one that's sitting there and like in his own little world, in his own little conspiracy idea. Maybe can we say conspiracy theories here? It doesn't matter what it is, some kind of truth that you made it your whole life, almost like an obsession where you're like, and then you're discarding everything that doesn't fit this. So you're limiting yourself, all right? You're sitting in this like in this truth of yours, and you're believing it, and life is passing you by, and maybe you're not leaving the house, maybe you're just being on the internet, and you have this blog, and you're like writing these ideas, and they, like I said, they could be nuggets of wisdom, they could be, but initially people are going to be like, whoa, what did I just read? So in your case, I would say, obviously you're going to be like, hey, I'm doing everything right. You will not want to hear any advice, but I'm going to give it to you, is get out of that, get out of the reclusiveness. Don't isolate yourself, okay? You do have cool things to bring to this world, you do. And I think with an equal exchange with people, where you're not the only one talking, where they get to say something, they ask you questions, you ask them questions, because people are curious about you. We want to know if something is weird. We kind of are repelled by it, but we also want to know why it is like this. Let's poke it, let's see what happens, let's study it. So you are interesting in a sense that where people they want to get to know you. So open yourself up to that, interact with them, and you can both, it can be a nice equal exchange, and it will help you get out. If you are in seclusion, if you're noticing yourself alone, doing everything alone, it's great. But, and to any other person, I would say this, it's so good for us to sometimes be alone, to get to know our world, to get to know what we like to do, our interests, our hobbies. You have a lot of that. But in your case, I would say, nobody, you're way too much here, alone, and you need to be more here. But of course, you're going to be like, I don't need to do dick. I'm perfect exactly the way I am. And you are, all right? And one more thing I was going to say before I go, physical appearance. One representation could be like, let's say if you're a performer like Astaire and all that, he was with his top hat, and he was very, people considered him to be a great dresser. But the opposite, the other extreme, could be where you are completely like disheveled, like you really don't care. Once again, it goes back to the fact that I'm happy the way I am, and I don't care if my, if I have BO, if my hair is not, if it's crazy, if my buttons don't, my clothes don't match, maybe the shirt is buttoned, but one button was missed, so if I were to look at you, I'd be like, hey, not all the buttons are buttoned. And another person could go, oh shit, hold on, I gotta do it. You'd be like, I don't care, so what? Or like, the shirt is backwards, or the socks don't match, something like that. It could also be here too, to where you really don't care about your physical appearance as much. You're just like, I would say in this case, it would be the people who are very much in their head, the ones that are like lit up by some kind of idea, some kind of revolutionary, like Lenin, something where you're like, nothing else matters. Then you're not going to care so much about what you look, if you're losing your hair, if your head's too big or whatever. Like Astaire, allegedly, thought his hands were too big, so he bent his middle two fingers somehow so they won't look as big when he was dancing. So things like that. He cared because he was on camera. But let's say if you are more like a philosopher idea, some kind of like a linguist like Noam Chomsky, or maybe you are somebody who's more up here, not so much in the physical manifestations, where you're using your body. This could take precedence over everything, and you could be off-putting people, not just through your crazy ideas and your madness, but also through your, maybe you smell, maybe you have something in your teeth, maybe you don't really care if you have good teeth. It could be like that, where you're so much in your head that takes precedence over everything else, and you don't care. You really don't care. At the end of the day, you don't care what we think of you. And that's the beauty of you. Like, we could learn a lot from, we could really use some of that. Is like where you just don't care how people perceive you because you're so tuned into that fire that's burning within. All right, guys, this is it for this placement. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you soon. Bye.